Greetings, my fellow freeloaders and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swamping mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Saturday, April 15th, 2017. Yep, day before Easter. Beautiful skies, cloudy, partly cloudy. People a little bit warm, but people enjoying the breeze. Yeah, I am located at CJ's Java Lounge, which is at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, or they call it the New River Drive in Fort Lauderdale, southwest section of the St. Andrews Avenue Bridge. Yeah, you got the river, got some folks roaming around, and you should come support mom and pop places. Nice little facility, a little chilled. And they let me do my show, so I always thank them for that. Yeah, I was just doing a little reading. A lot of interesting stuff is happening. Of course, CIA director making these claims that WikiLeaks is now a threat and all this good stuff because stuff is being exposed. Hey, man, that's the name of that's what we call the information war. And I was like watching CNN. Had some rally happening at Berkeley, which is reference to Donald Trump, pro and anti-Trump ralliers were there, and a big fight broke out. People using skateboards and all that good stuff. People claim it was AntiFa and all that, but you know what? Here's the thing. Anyone who's involved in those altercations have chosen poorly. And the fact is this. Kio bono, who benefits? The military police state. Keep it up. You'll be ruled a lot more with a tighter grasp around your throats. Like a bunch of peasants that we are. You are. And I say that in good faith. This is what they want. They manifest on these incidences, which is completely unacceptable. I'm not here pointing fingers, doing the blame game. And I know some folks, according to Luke Radowski from Real Change, you had folks from Oath Keepers out there. So I might just add that video on to my footnotes so folks can check out yourselves. I haven't really seen it, but I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to check it out as well. But I can tell you this. When you come to these rallies, expect hired agents to instigate trouble. And that is a fact. I've seen movements like this all the time. And it's nothing new at all. Because even that mentality of plutocracy, gang of thieves, my gang is better than yours, ain't gonna cut it. And this idolatry, who should run the country? Come on, it's supposed to be serving the country, not run it. So just to give you my intake, and I did put an Instagram out there. And Instagram video, Loki Luck 3, it's number 3. You can hit there or go to my Facebook page. I did make my quick commentary plus the video link by John Whitehead. Is the U.S. military ready for a American takeover of America? Hope I pronounced that right, but maybe preparing. But just check on my Facebook page and you can hear my intake and plus the link for that video and you can see it for yourselves. Very interesting because when you see all these people going up in arms and beating the crap out of each other and screaming at the top of their lungs, they're not benefiting no one. I see personal gain in some of these individuals within these movements. Or hired plants, infiltrators, or provocateurs. Something to really think about when you go to these areas. That's great. If folks have cameras. Hey, go out there, do your little report, man. Go out there, just report the stories, like Luke Radowski and many others. Now you got technology. You have the iPhone or Android. Use it. Tool. Use enemies' tools, I call it. And make sure so you got the opportunity to give more accurate information. So, enough of my little ranting. So I'm going to be actually look at a few articles. It may not be too long. Maybe. Yeah, I say why not. So, first thing I want to be doing actually came from the New American. Came out yesterday. It's entitled "The CIA's Hacking Ability." It's by C. Mitchell Shaw. Yeah, whether you like New American or not, or the John Birch Society, which they're actually was based out of, the information's very good. That's why I tell folks, just gotta focus on that instead of the organizations and so forth. Nothing against these people. And I know members. I have made contact with members from the John Birch Society. And they're good folks. They have their principles. And that's a good thing. And I cannot condemn them for that. Because they try to have folks see things in a bigger picture. They don't really endorse any presidents either, or candidates. They just focus on their actions, constitutional actions. And they have their merits. So, we'll start off with that. Before I do that, I'm going to just check something out here. I'm going to spec something here for the moment. No problem. All right. Let's start this off. WikiLeaks released thousands of pages of information provided by an informant showing the CIA not only developed tools to hack every major electronic device, but lost them. As it reads, an ongoing war on encryption, which is part of the larger war on privacy, waged by the surveillance hawks in government, the stakes have never been higher than now, as the three-letter agencies and others that work to maintain a surveillance state have run into a blind wall of encryption. They sought new ways to violate the privacy of the targets of their surveillance. In almost 4 years since Edward Snowden revealed the depth and breadth of the mass surveillance being conducted on American citizens and others by the NSA and other three-letter agencies, an active battle has been waged between those who would protect privacy and those who would not encroach upon it, as the surveillance hawks have vacillated between denying the size and scope of the surveillance on one hand and demanding backdoors into encryption used by people to secure their data on their hand. Default encryption has become the standard for devices running the newer versions of both iOS and Android. Millions of people all over the world began to seek out ways to secure their data at rest, files and folders stored on a device, and their data in motion communications. As a response to that increased demand, more and more software developers began to offer simple-to-use applications for mobile devices and computers. Those simple-to-use applications provide impenetrable encryption both for storing data and for end-to-end encrypted communications. The surveillance state responded with both a public relations attack, painting encryption as the tool of terrorists. Of course. And test case in the courts in the wake of the terrorist attacks in San Bernardino, December 2015, the Department of Justice, a misnomer if ever there was one, took Apple to court in an attempt to force the company to provide a backdoor into the iOS platform, circumventing the encryption protecting those devices. The Justice Department insisted the FBI claim that the backdoor would only be used on one phone. the phone used by the San Bernardino shooter, Saeed Farouk. Expert after expert show that there is no such thing as a one-time used backdoor, and that once such a technique exists, it could be used as often and as widely as those using it desired. The government's case was nothing more than an attempt to set a precedent. Apple stood firm in its refusal to compromise the encryption of its devices, and on the brink of a court decision seemed likely to favor Apple's position. The Justice Department dropped this case. The case ended with no win for the surveillance state and no precedent set. I know why. They had no merit, the DOJ. In the immediate aftermath of that failure, surveillance hawks in Congress introduced legislation to require companies offering encrypted devices and applications to create backdoors that will allow government agencies to sidestep the encryption. This legislation also failed. In fact, it never got out of committee. This writer detailed those events in an article for the July 18, 2016 issue of the New American entitled Government All Access Pass to Your Privacy. The article can be found on the New American's website, so check it out. Then the other shoe dropped. On March 7, 2016, WikiLeaks announced the largest publication of confidential documents on the CIA ever made public. The publication of these documents and files, codenamed Vault 7 by WikiLeaks, exposes the scope and direction of the CIA's global covert hacking program, its malware arsenal, and dozens of zero-day weaponized exploits against a wide range of U.S. and European company products, include Apple's iPhone, Google's Android, and Microsoft's Windows, and even Samsung's TV, which are turned into covert microphones. According to a press release by WikiLeaks, the first part of Vault 7 is called Year Zero and includes nearly 9,000 leaked documents and files detailing the CIA's arsenal of cyber weapons, including malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware, remote control systems, and associated documentation, and the hacker army of over 5,000 registered users employed by the CIA to use those cyber weapons to compromise computers, mobile devices, smart TVs, and automobiles, as the press release explains. Since 2001, the CIA has gained political and budgetary preeminence over the U.S. National Security Agency, or NSA. The CIA found itself building not just its now infamous drone fleet, but a very different type of covert, globe-spanning force, its own substantial fleet of hackers. The agency's hacking division freed it from having to disclose its often controversial operations to the NSA, its primary bureaucratic rival, in order to draw on the NSA's hacking capacities. By the end of 2016, the CIA's hacking division, which formally falls under, under the agency's Center for Cyber Intelligence, or CCI, have had over 5,000 registered users and have produced more than thousands of hacking systems, trojans, viruses, and other weaponized malware. Such is the scale of the CIA's undertaking that by 2016, its hackers had utilized more code than that used to run Facebook. The CIA had created, in effect, its own NSA with even less accountability, without publicly answering the question as to whether such a massive budgetary spend on duplicating the capacities of a rival agency could be justified. In a statement to WikiLeaks, the source details policy questions that they say urgently need to be debated in public, including whether the CIA's hacking capabilities exceed its mandated powers and the problem of public oversight of the agency. The source wishes to initiate a public debate about the security, creation, use, proliferation, and democratic control of cyber weapons. In a subsequent press release issued March 23, 2016, WikiLeaks published more information about the CIA's hacking program. The new information, codenamed Dark Matter, shows that the CIA has also developed tools and methods for installing malware directly into the firmware embedded in the hardware of Mac laptops. Since these are firmware hacks, the surveillance weapons could remain on the device even if the hard drive were formatted or replaced and the operating system reinstalled or replaced. The leak information also shows that after developing the cyber weapons, the CIA hackers handled them in ways that violated the most basic chain of custody. As a direct result of that, the WikiLeaks press release says, recently the CIA lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal. The inescapable conclusion of the CIA losing control of its cyber weapons is that they are now likely in the hands of others, both hostile nation states and individuals, even less restraint than the CIA. If that were possible, if those weapons, instead of being bits and bytes, lines of computer code, were guns and bombs, the result would be the same. And to put in the fourth, for what it's worth, column, this is at least as bad as that, because computer code is far easier to duplicate and modify than physical weapons, as WikiLeaks put it. Cyber weapons are not possible to keep under effective control. While nuclear proliferation has been restrained by the enormous cost and visible factor involved in assembling enough fissile material to produce a critical nuclear mass. Cyber weapons, once developed, are very hard to retain. Cyber weapons are just in fact computer programs which can be pirated like any other, since they are entirely comprised of information that can be copied quickly with no marginal cost. Securing such weapons is particularly difficult since the same people who develop and use them have the skills to exploit copies without leaving traces, sometimes by using the very same weapons against the organizations that contain them. There are substantial price incentives for government hackers and consultants to obtain copies since there is a global vulnerability market that will pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars for copies of such weapons. Similarly, contractors and companies who obtain such weapons sometimes use them for their own purposes, obtaining advantage over their competitors in selling hacking services. That's right. Let's make a deal. Highest bidder wins. Also, once a single cyber weapon is loose, it can spread around the world in seconds to be used by peer states, cyber mafia, and teenage hackers alike. The documents and files were leaked to WikiLeaks by an unknown source who had access to them because of the haphazard way in which they were circulated within the CIA and its contractor companies. Due to the dangerous nature of the cyber weapons and instructions for their use included in the leak, and not wanting to be guilty of the further spread of the cyber weapons, WikiLeaks made a surprising decision. Perhaps for the first time in the decade-long history, WikiLeaks redacted the information before publishing it. As the press release explains, WikiLeaks has also decided to redact any anonymous, something identified information in the year zero for in-depth analysis. These redactions include tens of thousands of CIA targets and attack machines throughout Latin America, Europe, and the United States. While we are aware of the imperfect results of any approach chosen, we remain committed to our publishing model and note that the quantity of published pages in Vault 7, Part 1, Year 0 already eclipses the total number of pages published for over first 3 years of the Edward Snowden NSA leaks. Given that WikiLeaks considered the documents and files so dangerous as to cause the whistleblower website to depart from its policy of release without redaction, what exactly are those cyber weapons capable of? The Year Zero disclosures show that the CIA's hacking weapons allow hackers to exploit vulnerabilities found in the software and firmware, software embedded into the hardware of electronic devices. In a plethora of consumer electronics made by some of the biggest names in electronics. By exploiting those vulnerabilities or bugs, a hacker using CIA's tools could break into and control computers and mobile devices, including those running Windows, Mac, Linux, Solaris, Android, iOS, and other operating systems. Those operating systems account for nearly all computers and mobile devices worldwide. Talk about EMP related, can you say, right? Oh, yeah. But just how much control could hacker gain over those devices? In short, total control. The leaked documents show that the CIA has developed techniques to remotely activate a wide range of devices, including powering them on if they are turned off, and control the cameras and microphones, turning them into surveillance devices that allow the hacker to both listen to and watch the victim of the surveillance. The implications of remote control access are staggering and go far beyond the ability to watch and listen. As bad as that is, having control over the device would also mean the hacker could access all files and folders on one device. Never leave all your eggs in one basket, right? This would not only mean that the hacker could view those files and folders, it would mean that they could add and delete at will. As the writer said in the online article dated March 8, 2016, if the hacker wanted to bring an adversary down, it would be a simple matter to create a hidden folder containing legal files, including child pornography, on the victim's device to be discovered at a later date by investigators serving a warrant. Such a sting operation would look for all the world like a legitimate law enforcement activity. Even if it did not end in a prosecution in prison, the victim could be branded for life. That is true. That is absolutely true. So you have to really be leery in these areas. It seems that far-fetched. There's a well-documented case where there's almost exactly what happened. In 2012, CBS News correspondent Cheryl Atkinson was working on an expose of Obama administration regarding the Benghazi scandal. Her computer and iMac began making a loud noise as the fan ran at full speed, indicating that the processor was overheated. That is odd behavior for an Apple product. Even more so, because the same thing had happened a few days earlier to the Toshiba laptop issued to her by CBS News. Atkinson took her computer to an expert. That expert described by Atkinson as a confidential source inside the government discovered on her computer a piece of commercial non-attributable spyware that is proprietary to a government agency, either the CIA, FBI, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the National Security Agency. Not only that, but buried the system files, and this is of her operating system, where she would be almost certain never to look. There were 3 classified government documents. Atkinson could have been charged under the Espionage Act for possessing in those documents. In her book, Stonewalled, My Fight for the Truth Against the Forces of Obstruction, Intimidation, and Harassment in Obama's Washington, Atkinson asked rhetorically, why defame me? Atkinson's claim, far from being mere, he said, she said, and well substantiated. She points out in her book that both CBS News and Don Allison, a security specialist at CoreLogic, confirmed the presence of the government spyware on her computer. In fact, I'm describing an episode of watching data in my computer file, wiping at hyperspeed before my very eyes. She says in her book, while a great deal of data had been expertly wiped in an attempt to cover up the deed, Don Allison is able to find remnants of what was once there. There's key evidence of a government computer connection to my computer and a sort of backdoor link that leads to an IPS address for a government computer that can't be accessed by the general public on the web. It's an undeniable link to the U.S. government. As she recounts, Alexander explained, this IPS address is better evidence of the government using your computer than the government had when it was accused China of hacking into computers in the U.S. It's like exactly. If the government says a country's hacking them, it could be our own. So just how did the government gain that degree of control over Atkinson's computers? For that matter, how do hackers, both government and non-government, ever gain control over any device? The WikiLeaks disclosures of the CIA's hacking program go a long way toward answering those questions. All software has a potential for vulnerabilities. As stated above, the arsenal of cyber weapons developed by the CIA includes malware, viruses, trojans, malware remote control, and weaponized zero-day exploits. Zero-day exploits refer to those vulnerabilities that hackers discover but are not known to the manufacturer of the hardware and software. Therefore, a developer has... Sorry about that, I just had a little... Developers have 0 days to patch the vulnerabilities before they are used as exploits. By exploring these vulnerabilities, hackers at the CIA develop ways to penetrate the system, running the vulnerable software and firmware to gain control over a variety of devices, including computers running almost all operating systems, smart mobile devices such as iPhones, iPads, phones, and tablets running Android, smart TVs, and automobiles. For information on potential use of hacked cars and trucks, see WikiLeaks CIA may be hacking cars to murder people. Since the CIA's hackers required unpatched vulnerabilities to penetrate systems and the devices, the CIA routinely hoarded those vulnerabilities by discovering them, but not reporting them to the hardware and software manufacturers. While this may seem to make sense in the darkened recesses of the minds of the CIA, hacking army, the reality is that by leaving those vulnerabilities unpatched, the CIA allowed a situation that threatened the security for the very people it sworn to protect. For information on the steps you can take to protect yourself against hackers, both government and non-government, see my article, Foiling Foul Hackers. The documents and files in Year Zero publication show the CIA developed hacking tools specifically geared toward Microsoft Windows, which, considered the essential spyware nature of Windows, could not have been very difficult. Since Windows maintained the dominant share of the operating system market for end users, the CIA's decision to focus much of its attention there makes logical sense. But the hacking army did not limit its arsenal of cyber weapons to only those geared towards Windows. Hacking tools were also developed to exploit vulnerabilities found in other operating systems. A sampling of some of the programs developed by the CIA shows how invasive these weapons can be. Umbrage is a suite of cyber weapons that includes keyloggers, password collection, webcam capture, data destruction, persistence, privilege escalation, stealth, antivirus, PSP avoidance, and survey techniques. Fine dining is a menu that CIA case officers fill out to request the tools that need to accomplish exfiltrating information from computer systems. Improvise, JQJ Improvise, is a tool set for configuration, post-processing, payload setup, and execution vector selection for survey exfiltration tools supporting all major operating systems like Windows, Bartender, Mac OS, Jukebox, and Linux dance floor. Its configuration utilities such as Margarita allow NOC or Network Operation Center to customize tools based on the requirements from fine dining questionnaires. Hive is a multi-platform CIA malware suite and associate control software. The project provides customizable implants for Windows, Solaris, and microchip used in Internet routers and Linux platforms in the listening post LP command and control C2 infrastructure to communicate with these implants. Wow, so you see what's really happening, right? Yeah, I know you can probably hear that fan going and all that. Interesting little vent. But you see what's been happening right now, right? It's just they want to really just try to playing a game of THX 1138. That's something to really think about, you know what I'm saying? And Weeping Angel is a tool set that infests smart TVs, transforming into covert microphones. It has a fake-off mode that allows hackers to suppress LEDs to the owner of the smart TV into believing the device is turned off, when in reality it is watching a via built-in camera and listening via built-in microphone. Even the names of these weapons are very telling. If the CIA hackers believe they were doing honorable and praiseworthy work, one would expect them to name their tools after virtuous things. Instead, these tools often named after evil things, albeit based on science fiction characters. For instance, the program Hive seems to be named after a character from the television series Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The character is an evil planned alien hybrid who wants to take over the world. He attempts to do so by affecting those with whom he comes into contact with the virus that brings them both under his control and into single consciousness with them. Similarly, the program Weeping Angel is named after the race of malicious predatory creatures from the British television series Doctor Who. The Weeping Angel in Doctor Who are creatures who appear to be stone statues as long as they are being watched. Once their victims look away, the Weeping Angels begin moving and doing their evil deeds. The hacking tools of these programs, as seen in a sample list above, allow the hackers to complete control over the target's devices. It is as if hackers are sitting at the keyboard looking at the monitor. Worse, because the control happens surreptitiously. The owner of user of the device has no idea he or she is being watched, listened to, and otherwise spied upon. For any mobile devices, the news is perhaps even worse. Many have long known that mobile devices are most difficult electronics to lock down to a good level of security. It is because of the very nature of smartphones depends on them. Oh, the fan's off. On them always having a connection to mobile towers for both voice and native connectivity, coupled with the GPS capabilities of the device and the presence of built-in cameras, front-facing and rear-facing, and other sensors to detect a long list of environmental variables. This makes for an electronic device that seems designed to report on your location activity. Any vulnerability in the system can be exploited instantly, turn such a device into a surveillance tool that is turned on its owner. I just gotta say something. I try not to laugh. When that vent came on, it reminded me of those combos commercials I see in the 80s. And he had one that says, Buzzsaw poetry. And what happened was the buzzsaw was going, the guy's trying to scream the poem. It's like ridiculous. He thought things that don't mix. Sorry about that. I had a chuckle on that vent the fan was going. All right. As the WikiLeaks press report states, CIA malware and hacking tools are built by EDG, Engineering Development Group, a software development group within CCI, Center for Cyber Intelligence, a department belonging to the CIA's DDI, which is Directorate for Digital Innovation. DDI is one of the 5 major directorates of the CIA. The EDG is responsible for development, testing, and operational support of all backdoors, exploits, malicious payloads, Trojans, viruses, and any other kind of malware used by the CIA in its covert operations worldwide. As part of the initiative, the CIA's mobile device branch, MDB, developed numerous attacks to remotely hack and control popular smartphones. Infected phones can be instructed to send the CIA the user's geolocation, audio, and text communications, as well as covertly activate the phone's cameras and microphone, according to WikiLeaks analysis in the press report. Keep that in mind. In more than 10 years, it has been exposing the corruption and illegality of governments and organizations around the world. WikiLeaks has never been shown to have published any documents that have later been proved to be false. But in this instance, its anti-secrecy website exaggerated in this analysis. analysis, even just a little. No. As the Wire reported in an online article dated in March 9th, 2017, the CIA documents published contains more than 70 separate links, which account for hundreds of pages on methods developed by the MDB to exploit iPhones, and another 47 links and hundreds more pages on Android. Since iPhone and Android make up nearly 100% of the smartphone market, with Android at nearly 85%, these exploits will affect billions of users worldwide. In fact, more than 1 billion Android devices were sold last year alone. Tools, weapons the CIA developed allow hackers to hack iPhones, iPads, and Android phones and tablets to defeat the device encryption, including encrypted communications and, in some cases, remotely activate cameras and microphones, remotely activate location services, even if the user has disabled them, remotely access files and folders on the device, and copy, remove, or add files and folders and other things. For its part, the CIA has, per usual, addressed these leaks from both sides of its mouth. In a statement released almost immediately after the leaked material was published by WikiLeaks, the CIA said that the agency has no comment on the authenticity of purported intelligence documents released by WikiLeaks or on the status of any investigation into the source of documents. The statement then went on to defend the agency's efforts to aggressively collect foreign intelligence overseas to protect America from terrorists, hostile nation states, and other adversaries. I'm not saying everyone rank and file CIA are bad either, but it's something to think about, my friends, all right? While neither explicitly confirming or denying the validity on the purported documents and files, the statement condemns WikiLeaks' disclosure of the information, saying that it is designed to damage the intelligence community's ability to protect America against terrorists and other adversaries. The statement added, such disclosures not only jeopardize U.S. personnel operations, but also equip our adversaries with tools and information to do us harm. Can we say hot potato game, right? Of course. If, as the CIA would have the American people believe the authenticity of leaked documents and files is questionable, then its publication could not possibly jeopardize U.S. personnel and operations, for equipped our adversaries with tools and information to do us harm. Added to that is the fact that the FBI is investigating the leak to determine who has access to the information, according to a report from the New York Times, which went on to say that the list could include at least a few hundred people and possibly more than 1,000. This is as good as an admission that the materials published by WikiLeaks are genuine. After all, if the leak is not genuine, what is there to investigate? So the CIA, in possible violation or at least in access of its mandated powers, created a secret army of hackers equipped with an equally secretive arsenal of cyber weapons to hack into the wide range of devices for the purpose of spying on the people using those devices. And while the CIA claims that it never uses investigative tools on American citizens living in the United States, it is important to remember that the agency does not exactly have a stellar reputation for being truthful. And even in the off chance that the CIA's claims about not spying on American citizens living stateside is true, it is also irrelevant because cyber weapons developed by the agency were allowed by ineptitude to get loose in the world. Consequently, those weapons are right now likely in the hands of other nation states and teenage hackers. They are certainly in the hands of the NSA, FBI, and other American spy agencies that don't even pretend to have CIA's restrictions on spying on Americans living on the land of the free and home of the brave. There's a related article then too for foiling foul hackers. Oh yeah. In the name of security, I will sell my ass to you. CIA, Big Brother, New World Order, etc. And I'm being sarcastic. This is nothing more trying to say they're going to protect you, but they want to get you in the back. I'll take care of you. And your back's so wounded. Say, hey, go ahead. Everyone else, stab me again. I like it, sir. And my friends, that's why you got to always pay attention and observe responsibly and safeguard your assets, yeah, and other important files. Try not to leave all your eggs in one basket in the digital realm. You always got to see things a lot more thoroughly. Try not to have a lot more than what it is, yeah. Ah, man. I'm just trying to see what I can do here. But like I said, my friends, like I said, it's always, when it comes to this high-tech stuff, there's always a flaw. So always keep your guard up by any means necessary. But I'm just trying to get the right code. What can I do here? Okay, yeah, no problem. All right, good. Just definitely, my friends. Hold on. Right, well, my friends, you gotta always always keep your guard up by any means necessary. All right, but yeah, it's a very interesting article, and like I said, I'll always have footnotes for everything. So yeah, definitely check that out. If you want to read it again and share it with everyone, that'd be fantastic. Speaking of the CIA, here's what came out today by the Washington Examiner. It says here, Roger Stone, CIA Director Mike Pompeo should resign after ripping WikiLeaks. See? And it says it's by Daniel Chaitin. And it says here, Roger Stone said on Friday that CIA Director Mike Pompeo should resign after he delivered a speech this week rebuking WikiLeaks. During this address Thursday in Washington, D.C., Pompeo said it's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it is, a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. When asked to react to that speech in Newsmax TV interview, Stone said there is no convincing evidence to support this assertion. The bureaucrats in career CIA are spinning a BS narrative, he said. Mr. Pompeo is so dumb that he's buying, added Stone before calling Pompeo's departure. This really raised questions about his qualification and his ability to do the job. There are strong indications that Stone, a Trump confidant and a longtime political trickster, dating back to the Nixon era, has been some sort of contact with WikiLeaks. A recent CNN review of Stone's public statements shows Stone repeatedly seemed to have forthcoming knowledge about leaks from the group. Stone claims he has never been contacted with the Russians. WikiLeaks also asserts it is not tied to the Russians and have never been in contact with him. Stone also became mired in controversy when he revealed that he had been in contact on Twitter in August with Lucifer 2.0, the hacker who claimed to be behind the Democratic National Committee email hacks. In a January report, the U.S. intelligence officials said with high confidence that both WikiLeaks and Lucifer 2.0, among others, were being used by Russian intelligence to release U.S. data victim obtained in cyber operations publicly in order to help undermine the 2016 presidential election in favor of Trump. Yeah, and like I said, folks, if you're going to make these statements, have merit. In other words, back it up. I get a big kick out of it. It's like, oh, stop pointing the finger. It's all their fault. His fault. You know what? Pompeo, with all due respect, shut your lid. If you got something to back it up, fine. But don't make these stupid, ludicrous assertions, baseless rhetoric. Just saying. If you got documented, concrete proof, I'm willing to listen, and so is the American people in the world. All right? Yeah, Roger Stone will be say whatever he wants. He has his pros and cons, like everyone else, on a human element. But yeah, I would say this. If you don't know what he's doing, you need to step down. So I'm going to leave it at that. Next here. Actually, this is interesting. I know I got this originally from your Newswire. So, and it actually came out a few days ago. And it's from one here is from the investmentwatchblog.com. It says here, former Hillary Clinton employee arrested on treason charges. It's by Baxter Dimitri. Candace Marie Claiborne has become the first Clinton-era State Department employee indicted on treason charges after a federal grand jury indicted her for conspiring to defraud the U.S. government, concealing contact with foreign spies, obstructing an official proceeding, and making false statements to the FBI. Claiborne, a veteran State Department employee who possessed a top secret security clearance, concealed her extensive contacts with Chinese intelligence agents, who for years lavished her with thousands of dollars in gifts as part of a pay-for-play scheme, according to the Department of Justice press release. And that link does have merit. It will take you to the Department of Justice report. Okay? So it's not made up. In addition to cash payments, Chinese spies provided Claiborne with vacations in an apartment, Apple Electronics, and tuition for a Chinese fashion school, according to the indictment. Suggested she learned tricks from Hillary Clinton, her former boss. Claiborne allegedly told co-conspirators to leak all emails and evidence after getting caught. The bill of charges contained numerous felonies, said Claiborne, 60, is facing spending the rest of her life behind bars as the prosecutors warn she is first of many corrupt Clinton-era State Department employees that will be brought to justice by a reinvigorated DOJ. Candace Marie Claiborne, and the U.S. State Department employee who possesses a top-secret security clearance and allegedly failed to report her contacts with Chinese foreign intelligence agents who provided her with thousands of dollars of gifts and benefits, said Acting Assistant Attorney General McCord. Claiborne, who used her position and her access to sensitive diplomatic data for personal profit, pursuing those who imperil our national security, personal gain will remain a key priority to the National Security Division. He added, this case demonstrates that the U.S. government employees will be held accountable for failing to honor the trust placed in them when they take on such sensitive assignments. Candace Claiborne is accused of violating her oath of office as State Department employee who was entrusted with top secret information, which she purposefully misled federal investigators about her significant and repeated interactions with foreign contacts, said Assistant Director in Charge Vail. The FBI will continue to investigate individuals who, through required by law, fail to report foreign contacts, which is a key indicator of potential insider threats posed by those in positions of public trust. The grand jury found Claiborne's Washington, D.C. home and her savings account are subject to forfeiture if she's convicted. She wrote in a journal that she could generate $21K in 1 year through one of her Chinese agents, according to an affidavit. She was allegedly wired nearly $2,500 shortly after was asked to provide the U.S. government analysis of its 2011 economic talks with China. According to the Department of Justice press release, Claiborne is facing decades behind bars of her crime. The maximum penalty for a person convicted of obstructing an official proceeding is 20 years in prison. The maximum penalty for making false statements to the FBI is 5 years in prison. The maximum statutory sentence is prescribed by Congress and is provided here for informational purposes. If convicted of any offense, the sentencing of the defendant will be determined by the court based on advisory sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. So there's a link for that, and there's another one in that site from the Department of Justice that pertains a PDF affidavit. And it looks like they've been investigating her for about 2 years. So, and talk about the code she allegedly violated and all that. And so it is very interesting. Remember, they've been talking about this spying and in the Clinton administration. So something may be turning. And how come the mainstream press is not talking about this? Something to think about, right? So how far can this go? We don't know. Anything can be possible. And first things first, they have to prove it in court. She is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And if Claiborne is guilty, she's done. Well, we'll just see what happens, my friends. All right. Let me check this out. Okay. All right. This one came out today. I follow this Hungarian newspaper called the Budapest Sentinel. And it's entitled The Closing Statements of Márton, Gulyás and Gergő Varga at the trial for breaching the peace and vandalism. The following are closing statements made by Márton, Gulyás and Gergő Varga at the trial on the Thursday of April 13, 2017. Civil activists were arrested Monday night for throwing open bottles of orange paint at the Sándor Palace, the official residence and office of the President of Hungary, János Áder. Earlier that year, President Áder has signed a modified law on higher education adopted the previous week by the Fidesz-controlled parliament with virtually no debate, ignoring the advice of numerous constitutional experts and wishes of some 70,000 demonstrators who had taken to the streets of Budapest in protest the previous evening. Lex CEU contains provisions that would essentially force Budapest's Central European University to close its doors. The law was widely seen not as much as an attack on American financier and philanthropist George Soros, who founded CEU 25 years about as an attack on academic freedom, prompting thousands to protest before the presidential palace Monday evening. Gulyás was taken into custody at the demonstration. Varga at his home several hours later, and 2 protesters were detained by police for 72 hours, pending an accelerated trial ordered by prosecutors. Charged with conspiring to breach the peace and vandalizing a landmark building, the 2 face up to 3 years imprisonment if convicted. Gulyás Varga were sentenced to 300 and 200 hours of public work, respectively. The Hungarian Civil Liberties called the verdict absurd. Márton Gulyás made a statement. I'll be brief because everyone is very tired. I would like to thank the members of the press for being here in such large numbers covering my case, which is obviously not only my case, but without the press, far fewer people would know what is happening in this country. I would like to thank my defense counsel for the speech he gave me in my defense, even if I could not have said it better. Thank you. And I would like to thank the prosecution for expressing so kindly the charges against me, claiming that my actions amount to disturbing the peace and public order in a defiantly antisocial and violent manner. And now the court must decide whether this is what in fact happened. It is a question of legal interpretation. Though I'm not a lawyer, allow me to address this as a question fundamentally is to what extent must the judicial authorities correlate or in some way coincide with society's general sense of justice. I am now of the view that is not a bad thing if some correlation exists between the two. And I must say, in the event my actions really constituted disturbing the peace and public order in a defiant, antisocial, violent manner, then I agree with the prosecutor that it is necessary to bring the provisions of criminal law to bear on my action. But in that case, I would ask what society should do with the sense of justice, which, for many years or even decades, has been continuously violated, or when members of society continuously see various groups and individuals who, in a proactive, antisocial manner, abuse their power and misappropriate public property and other assets entrusted to them. And we can see that in these pages, prosecutors never show the kind of proactive behavior that they did in my case. I would like to emphasize that I am not saying that in the event the court convicts me, my case can be compared to any other kind of legal proceedings. This is not what I mean. I regard my case as different from those. I am merely saying that today's events, and forgive me for my immodesty on my part, but I think that I am convicted today and given a suspended sentence as proposed by the prosecutor, and the court upholds, it is a verdict on the whole judicial system. What will happen then? Will society's sense of justice be satisfied with this decision? I dare say, and forgive me for my immodesty, that I don't think that society's sense of justice will be restored. It would be nice if it would be. If this sentence were enough to restore society's sense of justice, then I would head for the Yarrow Scorsese Street or Marco Street jails, and I would promise to stay there for the rest of my life in order for society's sense of justice to be revived. If this is not going to happen, and I think it is not going to happen, what precedent is the prosecution setting by this judgment? The prosecution, I'll say it again, that refuses to even investigate the various abuses of criminal organizations. Representative newspapers are sitting here who write about these cases today. We know about them because there is still a small group of independent journalists who write about the instance of VAT fraud, amounting to billions, about the public tenders. There are actually deceitful robberies which take place in broad daylight. And we can go on, but I don't want to continue because everybody knows what I'm talking about. People do read the media and learn about these cases. So my question is, is it the court's intentions to prevent such things from happening? I agree with the prosecutor that it is not a good situation when citizens feel compelled to throw bottles of paint as a way of expressing their political opinions. We can agree that it is a bad situation, but will the situation be rectified? And will a dialogue-based, more democratic order result by convicting Gergő, Varga, and me, or by prosecutors doing the jobs and going after really serious crimes, which today limit the ability of the citizen to exercise their basic rights? Those questions should be prosecuted, which paralyze the state, paralyzes government, and render the most important public institutions the subject of public ridicule. But instead of ridicule, one should feel despair. So I ask the court to consider very seriously, when it comes to a decision on my case, whether a conviction really satisfies society's sense of justice, or whether a serious investigation by the prosecution of the real offenders will. As I assume, arrest of terrible dissatisfaction which exists among broad segment of society, because it is not by accident that 70,000 people take to the streets. You can make people believe on Echo TV or M1, even TV2, that the demonstrators were flown in from Prague because the people have been misled. And obviously, European public opinion, even American public opinion, as well as the various Peace Nobel Prize winners, and so on and so forth are all misled. You can make people believe this for a short time, but society is not an assembly of stupid people. They know perfectly well that today the power of the state does not serve as their interest, but propagates its own enrichment and power by robbing the people. And so I very politely ask the court and the prosecutors to rise to the seriousness and loftiness of their authority and kindly initiate the kinds of legal proceedings that will really eliminate what's harming the Hungarian people. That will bring oppressors and explorers of the Hungarian people here, where I'm standing now, because unfortunately, I am not the one who constitutes a real threat to Hungarian society. The reason I say unfortunately is because the restoration of public opinion really only depended on my case. Then, believe me, I will be the happiest person around, but you know perfectly well this is not the case. Thank you for listening. You gotta give him credit for that. He's just challenging the system in Hungary. People are seeing this a lot bigger than what they present. That's what Mr. Gulyás says. And let's hear Mr. Varga. And says here, I'm not a lawyer. I would like to say that I think that in a democracy, our rights and freedoms does not exist merely because some etheric force guarantees them, or because they are written down in the fundamental law, in which our case changes rather frequently, especially considering it was carved in granite. In this way, the freedom of speech is only guaranteed if we use it and if we test its limits. It is not free speech if we say it exists, but we don't use it. It's like saying you can be furious, but don't be furious. In such exceptional cases, like the current one, the two of us, in addition to a third phantom demonstrator, felt that we needed to test the limits of free speech because public life has sunk to a level that can no longer be tolerated. But all right, let's accept the arguments of the prosecutor that our action was simply breach of peace and vandalism, as though thousands of other people weren't there and hundreds of policemen weren't standing there that day, and as though tens of thousands hitherto politically inactive protesters and police hasn't been staring each other in the eye for the past week. The police would rather have gone home to their families to relax, but instead they were afraid that the crowd might attack them. I'm curious whether under such circumstances this was really just a simple breach of peace or a simple act of vandalism, which to my knowledge does not generally merit locking up people for 72 hours who, for example, scribble "Russians go home" on landmark buildings or whatever. Such people are not locked up for 72 hours or given an accelerated trial. The facts that prosecutors forcibly detained us has antagonized so many people that there are 2 sympathy demonstrations on our behalf. There are so many people present at this hearing that perhaps you are in the breach of peace, except you are a state organization. So far it has not been allowed to say that this country is a dictatorship. But what if it really is? Then what we will call it? They say that the expression of my political opinion was a breach of peace. What will we call what comes later? If what we did is a breach of peace and vandalism, and any other context does not count, then the basic tone of political expression in the future will be a breach of peace, and everything else will only be worse. I do not mean that people will be afraid, but that if we criminalize the act of speaking out, then what will be next? The next week, they will break up a demonstration because loud noise after 10 p.m. is not permissible. Will we use violence against the community to sentence Roma? Wait a minute. That has already happened. What is happening to this country? If this court convicts me today, I will bear this proudly. What kinds of people observe laws that are passed against them? That is a great closing statement from these gentlemen. is question authority. What was the main purpose of putting these two gents on trial? Something to really look at, my friends. Indeed. But I like to see him be found not guilty. That's fantastic. It's a form of rebellion. It's just an example of what's going on. Not just the United States, but it's the world. Hungary, of all places. When they try to use tyranny amongst their brothers and sisters. Like Jefferson says, a little rebellion now and then is good. Who is the actual victims of this case? That's the question. So, wish them the best, Mr. Gulyás and Varga. I would love to see him be acquitted. But those are fantastic statements to get people to contemplate. So, and that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. That includes the rest of my archives within Spreaker and iHeartRadio. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting I may want to check out, whatever you do, please deliver your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Scene.life, Minds.com, and Freedoms Network. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is look at the number 3 at gmail.com. Or LokiLuck03 at protonmail.com. If you folks are a little bit fascinated with encryption. All right? Okay, my friends, that is all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.